Hey guys, Kev and Jonas for the season premiere of Shameless, Season 6, Episode 1, I Only Miss Her When I'm Breathing, and yes, I know this episode will be out, in, 2 weeks, definitely 2 weeks, next Sunday, I think, is when it actually comes out, but, Showtime put it out early, so I figured I would watch it and review it to you guys, since I'm not gonna be able to review it the day it comes out, because that's, Golden Globes, and let's just get into this episode. I was definitely looking forward to this premiere because season 5 really started to impress me towards the end. I think the storylines got a lot better. At first, it was kind of lazy, and definitely there were some things I really wouldn't care about, but towards the end, I really started to care about every storyline, and the finale left things off at a really good cliffhanger, and I really didn't know what was going to happen this episode. And I will say this, there's a lot of stuff in this episode I really did like, but then there's some stuff that I didn't like. And in my opinion, I do feel some things on this show are starting to get a bit stale. Definitely. I definitely saw some things getting stale. And it's not that it's bad, it's just some of it is getting a bit stale. And when people are saying, oh, Shameless is kind of losing its touch, I do kind of see that in some storylines. And I will get into some of the things I really like, because there were some things I definitely really did like, but then there were a lot of things that I didn't like. Mainly that this episode I felt was extremely rushed. I felt there were many things that we did not need to see in this episode, that they could have definitely waited for a couple episodes more, definitely. And Shameless doesn't do this a lot, but definitely this season, I'm hoping it's not rushed. But this episode, there were definitely some things that did not need to happen in this episode that did happen. But let's just get into it. So we start off right away with Frank. He's asleep at Bianca's grave, and I like seeing Frank grieving. I definitely like seeing that. I think this is cool to see this different side of Frank. My only thing is I don't like that they're trying to portray this in a comedic direction. They've always sort of done this with Frank. Whenever he has something dramatic, they go to something comedic, and Bianca's plot really made things with Frank a lot more sweet, honestly. I really liked their relationship overall between Bianca and Frank. The way that he was trying to help her, the way that he didn't want her to die. It was very sweet. Definitely like, and a lot of people said it was kind of like Frank seeing her as a daughter rather than a lover. And he clearly doesn't understand that yet. And a lot of what they do with Frank here I thought was really good, but it was portrayed comedically, and I really wasn't as big as a fan of that. He's asleep at Bianca's grave. The gravedigger is telling him to wake him up, is trying to wake him up and tells him he's sorry for his loss, but he can't keep sleeping at her grave and needs to get on with his life. And he thinks Bianca is his daughter, and Frank tells him that she was the love of his life and everything to him. The gravedigger says he has a grave to dig somewhere else, and he can't be there when the funeral party shows up. Frank brushes his teeth. Literally, he's brushing his teeth near her grave. He kisses Bianca's picture, tells her to have a good day, and he will visit her again tonight. And then we see Fiona wakes up and she's with Sean. Her and Sean seem to be an actual couple now. And I like Sean overall. I know some people didn't like Sean, thinking he was just weird or whatever, or maybe they like Gus more. I like Sean. I don't think he's a bad guy. Yeah, he's had problems with drugs and things, but at the end of the day, he really does care about Fiona. And I definitely like seeing that here. And I think Fiona really does need someone that cares about her, because in the past, she's had Gus, who was kind of just like a rush thing. He did care about her, but Sean was always there for her. And Jimmy was definitely not like that. Jimmy always did things for himself. He was there for Fiona when he needed to be and when it was convenient for him, but he never really did anything for Fiona. And Sean seems like the first person I think is really going to actually be there for Fiona, and I really like where their relationship is going. So she tells Sean to get up, she goes downstairs, gets everyone else up, and reminds Ian to take his meds, and then tells Debbie that they have to be at the clinic before 8, or they will be waiting all day, and they have to do today, so they know for sure if she's pregnant or not. And of course, we know that Debbie is pregnant. There's a lot of really great dramatic irony in Debbie's plot in this episode. I definitely like seeing that. Debbie's plot was definitely one of my favorites in this episode. And Sean calls her by Gus's last name, and she says to stop calling her that because she's now separated from him, and she says he's the one sleeping with her. And Fiona then bangs on Debbie's door again. She's not coming out, and she's checking to see if she's showing. And Debbie is checking to see if she's showing it, so she knows for sure that she's pregnant. And Fiona then sees Frank lying on the couch crying, and she asks Sean if he's weeping again. And Frank says he's mourning a loved one taken too soon. And at first, it was like the family was being really cruel, but we have to understand that this has been a long time that he's been doing this. You know, he's been grieving a while. He's clearly not gotten over a death, and it's definitely annoying the family. I think they were definitely there for him before, but he's done this for so long that it definitely, they don't have much sympathy because he's done it for way too long. He needs to get over it. So I definitely like seeing that. But there's really no sweet scenes between Fiona and Frank. That's one of the things that was definitely missing in this episode was the heart. I didn't really feel like the family cared about Frank. And yes, I understand that families always felt Frank was pathetic and that he was stupid, but this was someone that Frank really cared about. And I at least thought Fiona would be there for him, and they weren't. And that was something that I definitely was a bit taken back by because honestly, I do feel bad for Frank. I think Bianca was someone that did care about him. He was in her life. He cared about her. He wanted to help her, and she knew that she was going to die. And she thought it'd be better for both of them if she took her life. And that's why it's so sad. I honestly thought it was very sad. And Frank says he's mourning a loved one taken too soon. Sean asks Ian if he's off to work because his shift starts in half an hour, and she asks him if he took his meds. He calls her mom, and she says she's not his mother, she's just concerned. And you definitely see Fiona back in trying to be the head of the household. As we know, she was she had that whole thing last season where she really wasn't a big part of the family. But now that she's with Sean, it kind of seems like things are starting to settle down and she's kind of back to playing that role of sister slash mother. Definitely you see that here. Um, so I like seeing that, and definitely Frank then scares her and tells her he loves her and he just wants her to know that. And he asks if he ever told her about how he caught an octopus on the reef outside their hut and Bianca cooked it on open fire. Fiona says yes, they've all heard this is clearly a story he's told a million times, and he then tells Debbie he loves her and wants her to know that. Ian tells him to go away because again, this is clearly something he's been saying to them for a very long time. Fiona asks Debbie if she's almost ready. Debbie says she's eating. Fiona tells her to eat faster. They have to drop Liam off at pre-K on the way. And Liam's talking now. I mean, I think this is the first time we've ever heard Liam speak, but Liam is talking a lot, and I like seeing that. Frank asks if anyone's seen Bianca's black armband, and Debbie says she's dead, and he sees they put it in the garbage. He asks what's the matter with them. She was a soulmate, and Debbie says she probably killed herself just to get away from him. Wow, that was definitely a bit much. I mean, I understand the family's getting annoyed, but that was definitely a bit much. You did not need that line, honestly. And I know Frank is supposed to be a comedic character, but I'm not a big fan of how they're handling this. And Frank tells Debbie he wants to light a candle for Bianca, but Debbie refuses. Frank says he hopes sometimes the two of them have the precious gift of feeling what he felt for her and then to have that love stolen cruelly from them. And then maybe, just maybe, they'll remember this day and their father's anguish and they'll be ashamed the lack of compassion they showed him in his time of need. He tells Liam he loves him and leaves, and I like this, honestly. I like seeing Frank trying to be there for his family. I like these a little bit more supportive, and I like that Bianca's death has kind of made him want to be there for them a bit more. I understand that he's grieving and he's not really doing anything, but that's what you do when you lose someone. You grieve, you cry, and the show is not portraying it as something genuine. They're portraying it as something stupid, and I'm taking it seriously. I'm not gonna laugh. I think it's honestly normal what Frank is doing. I don't think it's abnormal. I think it's normal. He's not had someone like this in a while. Yeah, he had Sheila, but Sheila left him, and Bianca left him too. And I think he's starting to realize that all the loved ones he has, they just leave him, and he doesn't understand why. And I like seeing that. I think this was definitely very well handled the way they did this. Honestly, I like the way this was done. So Fiona says that she doesn't know how much more of this she can take before she stabs the neck with a broken beer bottle, and Fiona asks Debbie what she's smiling about. Debbie says she's happy and she's allowed to be, and Fiona tells her she shouldn't be about this, and there's no reason to. Liam says something about drugs, and Fiona asks if Debbie's high. He pulls out a knife that he got from Carl's pillow, and Debbie says he probably has a pipe bomb stashed somewhere there too. Ian says he should go visit him this weekend. Debbie says she doesn't want to because she's busy living her life away from her degenerate criminal brother who keeps a switchblade in his pillow. And Fiona tells Ian to work because he can't be late again, and then asks Debbie if she's ready and makes fun of what Frank was saying, and basically makes fun of what Frank is saying. So Helene sleeps, and Lip takes pictures of her, and then wakes her up, and she says she thought he was going to set the alarm, and he says he lied. I'm not feeling these two, I have to say. Helene and Lip, I'm not feeling it. I'm really not. Mainly because Helene is just so much older. This relationship is doomed. I don't see this really working out, and I don't know why. Again, he chose her over Amanda, who was there for him, who would have been there for him, and I don't understand why he chose Helene over Amanda. I just don't get it. So Helene says she has a class. Lip says he does too. She says it's for philosophy, and he impressed her with his knowledge as he pleasures her. She gets up and he tells her to stay, and she says she can't be responsible for heeding his academic growth, and he says his professor Ewans won't care since he doesn't show up half the time. She gets dressed. She tells him he should teach since that's what his TAs are for, to teach survey courses to business majors who don't give a damn. And he says his teachers apply mathematics and particle dynamics for physics majors, and she asks if he's still drinking his breakfast, and he says he's not sure since he's usually still hammered from the night before. And he says, according to the dean, he's going to get himself fired, and says no one will fire him because he's a member of the National Academy of Sciences and been shortlisted for the Fields Prize 4 times, and not to mention he literally wrote the textbook he teaches from. So basically, it's not going to happen, and he asks if he can come over tonight, and she says he can't because she's busy, and he asks why. She doesn't tell him, she kisses him and leaves. So obviously, she's acting very shady, and he doesn't know why. But again, I'm just not feeling these two. I'm not feeling that spark that Mandy and Lip had. I'm not feeling that really nice chemistry that Amanda and Lip had. Him with this older woman, I'm really not a fan of. I mean, I thought it was cool what they did, him kind of just giving her sexual favors. But since this is a legit relationship, I think it's kind of silly. I'm going to say that right now. I really do think it's silly. There is some good stuff with Lip in this episode. This is really not it. I'm not a huge fan of this, I have to say. So, Debbie and Fiona are at the clinic, and the doctor calls them, and Debbie tells Fiona she wants to go in alone, and the nurse thinks that Debbie is Fiona's daughter, but she quickly says she's her sister, and Debbie tells her she can do this alone. Fiona says she will wait there, and Debbie I really loved in this episode, because like I said, Debbie, something I've always loved about Debbie is that she's grown up too fast. She's growing up too fast. She wants to be this mature woman, but there's just so many things that she doesn't understand, and there's so many things that she thinks she can have that she can have, and she needs to remember that she's 15. She's not Fiona, and I think Debbie kind of thinks that she can do this better than Fiona. She doesn't want Fiona because Fiona will hurt her, and she doesn't really want Fiona there, and I definitely like seeing that with Debbie. They're really handling her stuff very well. Kev and V in this episode were so funny. I really love what happened here. Kev sleeps as the doorbell rings. V wakes him up, tells him someone's at the door. As Amy and Gemma cry, he goes to the door with a bat ready, and it's the two Lisas who are given a petition to sign to, and they explain they're collecting signatures to force police to do something about the noise. And Kev asks what noise, and they ask if he doesn't hear that every morning. He tells them it's the ghetto, lots of noise in the ghetto, automatic gunfire, people begging for their lives. Kev was hilarious in this episode. He's always funny, but this episode especially, he was very funny. And they're talking about this one neighbor that they want to clean up the yard, and Kev explains they want Giannis to clean up the yard and stop the noise, and they want them to sign a petition, and he says he knows Giannis pretty well and to let him talk to him first so things don't get dramatic. And here's the thing with V and Kev. They have a plot in this episode, and then it sort of goes away. They have 2 scenes in this episode, and that's really it. So, Carl's in prison and is essentially the head of it pretty much. He's the head of it. Everyone, is his friend. He's doing push-ups on a man, and everyone in the prison is white except for Carl. He sees Chucky is still in the cell and leaves him as he is released, and I'm not really a fan of Carl in this season so far. I'm really not a fan, but I don't like the way he's changed. I don't like the way they're writing him. I just think it's really stupid. The haircut's weird. Something about Carl. I don't like the way they're writing him. Definitely. So Debbie's at the clinic, and the nurse tells her that it's positive, and she's definitely pregnant, and she doesn't want to discuss any further options. But then when she goes to Fiona, she lies to her and says that she's not pregnant, and Fiona tells her that they will go out for donuts before she drops her off at school. And obviously, she's making Fiona think that she's pregnant, she's not pregnant when she is in fact. So Lip knocks on his Professor Ewan's door, and he sees a new scratch in the car that wasn't there before. Ewan's asks if there's any blood or any article of clothing stuck on the grill, and Lip says there's not. He asks how he looks, and Lip says like shit. He says good and welcome to the dean. Good morning to the dean, and obviously Ewan's is in a very bad spot. He's using constantly, and Lip is definitely more of a teacher than Ewan's is. So Fiona's at her job and gives out an order. Sean asks if Debbie seems okay, and Fiona says that she was actually disappointed, and Sean says it's because she's in love, and Fiona says she's only 15. Sean says it's because of her hormones in her body telling her to procreate, and Sean says Otis won't pick up the phone. Fiona asks how late he is, and he says it's over an hour. Otis then shows up, and Sean berates him for showing up late, and Otis says he's sorry. He says sorry, he won't cut it if he's still assistant manager, and he's expected to show up on time. And Sean says that he thinks Otis is using again, and Fiona asks him if he is, which he denies, and she believes it. She doesn't think anything of it. So Svetlana goes to Ian and asks if he wants to go visit Mickey in prison. And yeah, I guess Mickey and Sammy were arrested. It would have been nice if they showed us that, but literally in the previously on Shameless, they made it seem like we saw this. No, we didn't. We did not see Sammy and Mickey get arrested. We saw them in a fight, and we didn't know if Mickey or Sammy died. The good thing is, it does not seem like we're seeing anything of Sammy, which I'm very happy about. I don't know what the hell happened to her. Um, but I'm glad they mentioned Sammy once, and let's not ever mention her again, because I am not a fan of Sammy. I'm just not. I want her dead. I really do. You guys know Sammy really killed last season for me, and I'm glad we really haven't mentioned her. So Ian refuses, says he told her he can't see him again. She says he won't see her if he doesn't come, and he says he's done with that part of his life. She says she will pay him, and he asks how much, and she says it will be 50K, and Sean asks Fiona if she wants to go fishing as a date night, and Frank is then in church, cuts in front of the line, tells him he's late for work, and he literally goes up to a priest who he's talked to 23 hours ago, and the priest has nothing to say to him, because he said the same thing over and over again. He has nothing to say to him. He just wants him to stop cutting in front of the line, and again, no one is having compassion for Frank. You really see that here. He's not getting compassion for anyone. No one is there for him, and it really just, it felt broken. It really does. I wanted someone for him to talk to. I wanted that just one moment of heart, and it didn't happen in this episode. I really wanted someone to have sympathy for Frank. I mean, he went through a tragedy. This is sad. Feel bad for him. Don't just, think that he's some idiot. Feel bad for him. So Kev goes to talk to Giannis, finally gets his attention. He tells him his bike is a little loud, and people are starting to complain. And Giannis goes on this whole rant, which I thought was pretty funny, honestly, talking about how the Lisas are lesbian, and that his pit bulls can tell that they are, and that he doesn't want to hear any more complaints for them. And obviously, very interesting between Giannis and Kev. And then this just goes away. This is the last time we hear about this in this episode. I don't even know if it's going to really mean anything, but that's all we get of it in this episode. So, okay, but that's all we get. So Sean tells Fiona to tell Ian to hurry up with cleaning the table. Fiona tells him he needs to pick up the pace a little bit, and Ian says nobody's waiting, so it's not a big deal. Fiona says it is, and suddenly Otis is being chased by cops. He runs out of there. Fiona and Sean watch as they search him and arrest him, and Sean tells Ian to clean the window of Otis's blood, and Sean says it looks like he's going to need a new assistant manager, and Frank then smokes, and we see this montage of him going up to different religious groups and trying, which I gotta say, this scene was very funny. He's trying to talk to them about losing Bianca, and they're getting involved in their culture. This I thought was pretty funny. So Debbie's going over baby names with Derek, and he says they need to get their families together and talk about the baby, but Debbie shuts that down and tells him now is not the time. She tells him she looked up Lamaze classes online, and there's one on Tuesday they can do together, and he tells her he has to go work on a worksheet for Tuesday for auto, and she tells him to not forget their appointment after school, Planned Parenthood at 4, and he doesn't really seem into it, honestly. I don't think that Derek really seemed into it because he wants to tell his parents. He wants them to do this together, and he doesn't want her to do everything. So I think definitely Derek isn't as into it as Debbie is. So Lib is in charge of the class, and a girl's flirting with him, telling him that she wants to have sex, and he tells them about what happened to Ewans and decides to review with them for the quiz. Ewans comes in, and he sees Lib teach, and he sees his passion, and Ewans thanks him, goes on with teaching, and Kev and Svetlana are at the bar, and Frank comes in and starts to tell him about Bianca. They don't want to hear about it either. And again, he even goes to some random customers and starts talking to them. They just record him. It's, again, I didn't care. I thought this was really badly handled. So Sean tells Fiona that Otis wasn't using, he was cooking meth, and the cops found he was hiding it in his toilet, which Sean says is a terrible place to hide it, and he thinks that Fiona should be assistant manager, which this is a very interesting direction to take Fiona. He wants to do this not just for his sake, but to help her out with her next job, because she needs money, and this was only supposed to be a temporary job. So he's thinking, okay, I can get you started with your new job. And Melinda is very upset because she's been there longer, and he only thinks that he's giving it to Fiona since they're having sex, and he says it's not because of that, and that Melinda doesn't work Christmas and holidays because she has a family, while Fiona can. And he tells Fiona the thing about the position, And this I think is very interesting. And then we get this great scene with Lip here. We see that a class, students asking Lip if Ewan's graded his paper or he did, and Lip says it was him. And the student, says he deserves way more than a D, and Lip says that he plagiarized it, and the student denies it, and Lip asks if he wants him to Google it, and the student looks upset, and he tells the student to rewrite it in his own words and hands it back to him tomorrow, and he will knock him down by one letter grade, and Ewan's asked if he's his friend. Lip says he's not. He says he could have had him expelled, and Lip says he seemed like he needed a break, and Ewan's asked if he assumed the decision what to do next was in his, and Lip says he doesn't think he'll do it again, and Ewan says that he should consider teaching, and Lip doesn't really know if it's a good idea, but yeah, I could see Lip definitely being a teacher, especially several scenes in this episode. I could definitely see it happening for Lip, and I'm really interested in seeing where they take that. That is a very interesting plot line. I'm definitely interested in seeing where that's going to go. So Debbie's at the hospital, and Derek is not there. She's telling the nurse that Derek's running late. Carl's dropped off back home, goes inside the house, and it's apparent right away that something is different with Carl. He's acting like he wants to be there, but he also seems very pissed off, and we don't know why. He's acting tough, and he asks if, and obviously Fiona is very excited to see him, but just something is off about him. He's not acting like Carl. He's talking about how can I invite a friend over for a sleepover, just something about him, it's not really working. And she wants to even have a welcome home party, which he agrees to. And then we see Mickey in jail, and Svetlana and Yevi visit him, and Ian is there too. And Svetlana gives Mickey a job to stab a prisoner in the eye, and he will give half of her pay. And he asks if Ian if he's gonna sit there back there the whole time. It's apparent that Mickey just wants to talk to Ian. That's why he's there. He wants to talk to Ian, and he clearly still has feelings for him. He even got a tattoo of Ian's name. I mean, that's how much he loves him. And he even asks him if he's going to, wait for him, but Ian's saying, oh, it's gonna be 15 years, but Mickey's convinced he will be out of 8 because of overcrowding. We do hear that he shot Sammy, that he did shoot him, and that he did shoot Sammy, I believe he said he saw. No, he tried to kill Sammy, and Mickey says he shouldn't give a shit, she had it coming, and Mickey asks if he will wait, and Ian says he will, and basically that's where that goes. So I think that's going to be interesting to see if Ian actually does. Clearly, I don't think Ian feels the same way that Mickey does. I think Mickey's feeling like, oh, we have a better chance of working out, but Ian, I think, knows that this isn't going to work out as well as he wants it to, and it's sad, but I think Ian's just looking at this realistically. Realistically, long distance relationships don't really happen, and Ian knows that, and I think Ian just wants to move past that. They've broken up, and he doesn't really know if he wants to get back to that part of his life, and I like the way that they're writing Ian. That's a very good arc for him. So I'm interested in seeing how that's going to be. So Lip's roommate comes in and is surprised Helene isn't there, and Lip asks how he knows that, and he says he's been sneaking her in a couple times in a week, and he heard she might be fucking someone new, and he asks where he heard that, and he says it was around, but it's probably just a rumor, and he should probably have some drugs for when she bails on him, and Debbie then goes to Derek's house. His mom answers. Derek is not there. His father apparently is taking him to Florida, and Debbie obviously is freaking out because she needs Derek there. He needs to be the father of her child, and I can't tell if this is his parents that are doing this, or if this is simply Derek just not knowing what to do and wanting to get away from Debbie because he doesn't want to be a father right now. And I kind of feel like it's the latter. I kind of feel like Derek just doesn't want to be a father right now, but doesn't have the heart to tell Debbie because he just loves her so much. I feel like that's what's going on there. So we go back to the welcome home party, and Frank is congratulating Carl for being a convict, which I thought was pretty weird. But then when Carl's friend comes over, we see that he has brought this guy Nick, who is not a kid. He definitely is not a kid. He is tough. He looks like he was in prison, and right away this guy is obviously very shady. And Sean tells Fiona they can still have their date fishing, and she agrees. And basically, Carl goes to leave with Nick, and the party ends. And basically, Carl's friend basically we then see that they go to have sex, Fiona and Sean, and he asks her if she's thought about the assistant manager job. And she's convinced that everyone's going to hate her, and that it's a horrible idea if she does take it. But Sean says that she already has a felony conviction, and people are real reluctant to give her a chance. But with a little management on her resume, she can make that job much easier, whatever it may be. So she says she will do it. And again, I like that Sean is trying to help her. He's trying to get her started, looking out for her best interests. I like seeing that, and I like these two together overall. I think they definitely have something there. And Lip then sees Helene with another student. Lip sees him, they fight, and we learn very quickly that this student is not a student. It is, in fact, her son, and Lip obviously feels terrible about it. And I thought this was really stupid, honestly. The fact that Lip would just think something of this, I thought was really dumb. And the fact that Lip is getting attached to Helene, I think is really stupid as well. I mean, does he really think this relationship is going to work? I think is really stupid. I mean, if he didn't fall for Karen's tricks, he shouldn't fall for this because this is really dumb. So Fiona sees Carl and he says he's making a bed for Nick because he likes the floor since solitary, he can't sleep in a bed. And Carl tells them he will be right there and he says he likes him to have his back in the showers because it makes him feel safe and he doesn't know any better because he's been in juvie since he was 9 for setting his dad on fire. And Fiona asks how old he is and Carl says he's 18 and they had to let him out because of his birthday and then he let him crash there. So again, just he's acting very dismissive. Fiona tells Ian to take his meds. Fiona then knocks on Debbie's door and she tells her to go away. Fiona says she can always talk to her if she needs to. Debbie texts Derek and he's not responding. And she thinks that it's his parents, because she's saying they can't take you away from me. And Frank then lies down at Bianca's grave. This was just weird, honestly. I don't know what they were thinking here. He's trying to have sex with her. Like, he has her bra and panties and he's trying to have sex with her. This was just, I don't understand. This grieving is one thing. This was just weird, and it wasn't even funny. I just found this weird. The gravedigger sprays water at him, tells him to get away, and this was just strange. So Lip is in bed with that girl, Tiffany, that was making a pass at him, and Helene is at the door, yells at him for beating up her son, Dylan, and Tiffany gets out of there very quickly. Helene asks what he was doing coming over to her house, which, yeah, Helene has a right to be angry. I mean, Lip did not need to come over. He had no right to be there without calling her, and Lip says he didn't know who he was, and she asks if he was spying on him, and tells him he has no right to be near her, or her family, or her house, and he says he knows, and she's right, he's stupid, and he's sorry. He asks if Dylan's okay, and she says he should be fine. His right eye is pretty swollen because he hit hard. And Lip says that, Dylan hit hard, and he thinks he nearly broke a rib. And Lip says he thought her son was 10, going through prep school or something. And Helene asks why he would have sex with Tiffany, and he says he was feeling a little sorry for himself, and he asks if she remembered her. And she said she wasn't very memorable, and she asked Lip if she is, and, I don't know, again, I'm just not feeling this relationship. I like these two as friends, but I'm not feeling a relationship between them. I don't really see it. It's just not there for me. I don't really see the chemistry between these two. It just feels weird, definitely. So, and I'm much more interested in Lip's teaching storyline, much more than I am in him and Helene. I'm just not really interested in this. So Frank watches Fiona sleep, and she says he's creeping her out, and I thought this was going to be the scene. I thought this was going to be the heartful scene between them, but again, nothing. No heartful scene, nothing sweet, and I get it that Frank has put the family through hell, but they were there for him with his liver. I mean, when he had those liver problems, they were there for him. They tried to help him out with that. They were concerned, obviously, and they would be there for him with this. I mean, I just think as a family, they should be there for him. Even though he can be a bad father, they should still have that compassion. I mean, when anyone loses someone, it doesn't matter who they are, someone should be there for them. And no one is there for Frank, and it's really stupid, honestly. I don't like the way they're handling this. So Carl calls for Fiona as Nick works out, and when she comes down, she meets Derek's parents, and Derek's mom says she'd like to talk to them about the baby, and Fiona asks what baby, and she lets it out right away that Debbie is pregnant, and Carl asks what else he missed, and then we get, of course, the post-credit scene of Frank walking out with Bianca's panties on because they help him feel closer to her, and that's how this episode ends. So like I said, a lot of stuff here I really do like, and a lot of stuff I don't like. I really like the way they're handling Debbie's plot, I have to say, because now she knows. Now, I thought this was really rushed, though. I did not think we needed this whole thing with Derek moving away. I don't think we need that in this episode. I think they should have ended it with Derek not showing up, and then Debbie going to him in episode 2, and then realizing that he moved away. That would have been a lot more effective. I just feel we didn't really need everything we got with that in this episode. But what is going to happen was this Derek's decision, or are his parents trying to keep him away from Debbie? I'm not really sure. I mean, they refer to Debbie as his friend, so clearly he hasn't really talked about them, and they don't really know what's going on between him and Debbie, or they just don't care. I'm not really sure. That's definitely very interesting. Fiona taking this assistant management job, is this a good thing for her? Is she making the right decision? How is this going to affect her friendship with Melanie? Melinda, I mean, definitely things are going to change between her and Melinda. We'll have to see what happens there. Frank, someone needs to have compassion for him. I'm sorry. I know that he is a dick. I understand that. I understand that he's been a bad father, but he's lost someone. Someone needs to be there for Frank, and no one is, and it's really, really stupid, in my opinion, that no one is there for him. How is Debbie going to handle this situation? We'll have to see what she does there. Lip and Helene, again, I'm not feeling it. I'm just not feeling it between them. I hope that they break up soon. I'm not feeling it there. Bring Mandy back or Amanda, just one of them. I don't really care. Just, I don't like Helene. Will Lip take this position? I think that Lip should go into teaching. I think it'd be a good thing for him. He clearly is a very good at teaching. He cares about his students, and definitely that's very interesting what they're doing with that. Carl, something is up with Carl's friend Nick. I don't trust him. He's very shady, and we don't know what's going to happen there. Ian, will Ian wait for Mickey? I don't know. I mean, it seems like Mickey wants Ian, to be with him, but Ian doesn't see it that way. They broke up and Ian wants to move on, and I like seeing that. Um, and then Kev, what's going to happen with Giannis? Are the neighbors going to continue complaining? We'll have to see. But overall, guys, I'm looking forward to this season. This wasn't a great premiere by any means. I think this was a good premiere, but it wasn't a great premiere. I understand there was a lot to get through, but there was a lot of stuff rushed in this episode. Like this whole thing with Lip and Helene, that did not need to happen in this episode. We could have ended it with Lip's teaching plot, and that would have been fine. Debbie and Derek, there was a bit too much with them. But overall, guys, let me know what you guys thought of this premiere. I thought this was a good premiere, not a great premiere. Definitely, they've had much stronger premieres in the past, but I will see you guys, and I don't really know how the scene's going to be overall. Some stuff I'm really liking, and some stuff I'm not, but we'll have to see what happens. But let me know what you guys thought of this episode. I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for the first movie review of 2015. Definitely look forward to that, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.